Hi guys, welcome back to another episode on the Truthandtalespodcast with your favorite host, Yemi and
Victoria.
Yay! Welcome back to us. We are welcome back to the channel. How are you all doing? Thank you so much for your love and support, for always coming back for more conversations. We love you guys love us, and it's a sweet one. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for always leaving your comments, for subscribing, and if you're yet to subscribe to the channel, this is the best time to do so. And do not forget to check us out on our personal channels as well. My channel is Yemi Ayodeji and Victoria's channel is Victoria Fash. Okay, simple, short and sweet. All right, just so you know what we're doing in our personal lives, right? And yes, today we are diving into another interesting conversation. As always, let's not talk too much. Okay, let me not talk too much. Victoria, give us the truth of the day. What are we talking about? What are we doing today?
Okay, so today we are talking about a truth, and you guys already know that truth is just things that are happening around us, and we are sharing our opinion on it. So today we're talking about third-party interference in marriage and how realistic it is for you not to have third-party interference, because especially if you're in the part of the world where we grew up in, you're always told, and I think it's even generally, there's always this advice: don't bring third party into your marriage. But we realize that as you get into marriage, sometimes it becomes difficult, right? So what we want to discuss today is it realistic for you not to have a third party interfere? Maybe not even interfere, but even you bring in the third party. I know last 2 weeks we're talking about boundaries and all of those and how you should set boundaries. And Yemi was saying something interesting before we started, that boundaries, we usually set boundaries with people we do not invite into our family. But what about the people that we had to invite, or situation forces us to invite into our family? Like, is it possible for you to go through marriage without having interference? So that's what we are discussing today. I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. Do you think, if you're married, do you think that if you've been able to successfully do it? Let us know what are the tactics you've been employing, and then let us know what your opinion is. And if you are unmarried, have you heard about not having third party, and what do you think about it? Is that something that you believe in, or you would like to have to inculcate in your marriage? And then, have you heard about it? Let us know in the comment section below. So anyways, without talking too much, Yemi, what do you think about this third party thing? Do you think have you ever had a third party interference in your marriage?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I have. I have had, and like you said, we've talked about setting boundaries, other people, like uninvited people in the marriage, and this also like relates to relationship as well. Even if you're dating, it also relates to relationship as well. But we are going to be talking in the context of marriage, right? So yes, I've had like third party, now not an uninvited an invited third party in my marriage, where we had to seek for help. I wouldn't really say help in that sense, but like seek for advice, seek for opinion. And I think it's so interesting that the very first major fight that my husband and I had, in fact the very first year of marriage, most of the arguments or the glitches that we had were because of invited third parties on both ends. And that's the interesting thing, that it's on both ends. And it wasn't a case of maybe when we talk about invited third parties, it would be like maybe when you call mother-in-law, or maybe when you call father-in-law or sister-in-law, all those things, pastor, for example. But mine was kind of, in fact, when I look back, when I think back, I'm just like, why did we do this to ourselves? Like, why did we have to why did we have to do this? But then at that point, it didn't seem like you shouldn't invite a third party, and which is why I love what you said earlier, that is it realistic not to actually invite people into your house? And like they've always told us, don't let another person into your matter. If you guys have issues, resolve it within yourself. But I don't think it's really practical. I don't think it's realistic, because like I said, it was one of the things that had that I experienced issues with in my first year of marriage. I came into marriage with this mindset that it's me and my husband, and more like because I've been kind of independent in my thinking, in my way of doing things. I really did not seek advice or counsel from a lot of people while I was, going through my young adult life. I really did not have like somebody that I would really check in. And I think for me, most of the things I learned about marriage, about life itself, I learned them on my own. Because I never really had like a mother figure that, and women would normally gravitate to another woman, like your mom or your aunt or your mom's sister. But I really did not have all of those. So it was just my dad that was really the parental figure for me. So what am I going to ask my dad? Like, in fact, like, what am I going to ask my dad? The only time I remember asking my dad for like some form of advice was like I depend on my father for a need. Like I remember writing, when I was going to boarding house and I started menstruation and I wanted to write, because my dad would ask for the list of things. It was my dad that was always doing all of those things. So I wrote part for, I didn't want to write in full menstruation, and I put MENS for men. And I remember my dad saw the list and was like, for men, am I buying things for a man now? Am I buying things for a man? I mean that I'm going to school. And I was not shy to tell him. So when he now found out, I was like, oh. So he then had to like speak to one of my aunts for that one to come and speak to me, just because I really didn't have. So I am just trying to say that I really did not have that kind of like a mother figure, or it was just me, my sister, and my friends, as I grew up into adulthood. So I didn't have that person that I would go and meet and say, oh, this is wrong with me, or that I would gist with. So I had that independent, I was just strong for myself, basically. So when I got into marriage, I expected that, it's going to be both of us, will be strong for ourselves. So I really did not go into marriage thinking that I would have a reason to invite anybody. I went in there thinking, we'll just sort it out. If at all, if there's anything, it would just be gist, that I'm gisting them about what's going on in my home. I had no plans of maybe inviting people like, we're having an argument, so come and help us, or anything like that. I didn't have plans for that. On the other hand, my humble young husband was one that was like in their home, their family, or their nuclear family, himself and his siblings and his mom, they are close. They are like the ones that constantly call. They can call 5 times in a day. They are constantly checking up on each other. Like, they are giving each other gist. I went to work today. They're like doing all of that. They are, everyday thing. And it was, it was cool for me while we were dating, when I would see them call and speak to each other. It was cool. It was nice. I just used to, like, I never thought of a big deal that when we get into the marriage, he would probably maybe call them to speak about something. And I remember the very first argument that we had was something happened between us, and he just picked up the phone out of reflex and just called his mom, and he was just talking about it. And I'm like, wait, what's happening here? it was just shocking to me. I was like, I thought this man was supposed to be doing it. I'm like, wait. And he was just gladly smiling, talking to her. They were both talking about him. Like, I was just a bit really confused. But then he didn't know that it's like, it genuinely did not know that there's an issue there. And I kept on, and because I also had issues with communication, I didn't say that thing was bothering me. I gave him the silent treatment, and he was wondering like, what is wrong with this person? And I remember him the next day, a family member called him again, and they wanted to like speak to me. I'm like, just leave me alone. Don't bring the phone close to me, because I was still angry from yesterday. And that was when he was not angry that one of his family members called to speak to me, and I ignored them, and that was when he picked up the anger. And I was angry that, don't you know that I'm angry? That's why I don't want to. It was so messy. It was really messy. And I remember that, we now had to sit down and have that conversation about what do we do with, resolving conflict, and, telling people, talking to people about it. And I also remember, even with my own end, I didn't really talk to my siblings about conflicts. My older sister. She was already married, and she's gentle. She's more of the gentle side. Me, I'm the stubborn one. So she would always be like, hey, relax, calm down, don't give them trouble. You relax. And I'm like, no, this war, man, no war, fight fair for fight. And if anything, my husband would probably, because like I said, they were close, they were really close, they were cool. If at all, he would call her and be like, come and talk to your sister, come and warn now. But me, I'll be like, it's when she now calls me, I'll be like, I beg, don't mind him, like, just leave me alone. But I wasn't just used to it up until like, if at all, the people I talked to was my friend, one of my really close friends, and because we had talked about marriage together. We had prayed about marriage together. We had, we had plans about marriage together. So if when I got to that point, I had to like speak to somebody. When I got to that point, that I knew that, okay, I think I'm done like trying to figure this out on my own, I had to speak to somebody. So on the realistic side, before I talk too much, on the realistic side, I don't think it is realistic, the way they say try to resolve things by yourself. I don't think it's realistic for you not to invite someone into your marriage, into your relationship, either by seeking advice or by seeking for help or by any form. I don't think it's very realistic, to be honest. Well, from my own experience. So how about you? Have you have to be like me?
For me, okay, I think that as much as possible, it's something that I want to avoid. Because, but is it realistic that you will not have? I think so. I think it's almost not. It depends on how long you've been married for. Because there are times that, people can be so stuck in their ways that it's difficult for you to get through to them. And you now need to get somebody that can get through to them. However, still, personally, I still believe that there should be no issue that you guys cannot resolve within the two of you. Most times, the reason why you have to call an outside party is because somebody in the marriage does not want to concede that what they did was wrong. And then it becomes a thing of, I don't want to concede, you don't want to concede, so let us call somebody else, right? But if we actually approach conflict in a way that, okay, I own my part in it, you own your part in it, and then let's look for a middle ground. Now, it is easier said in theory, to be honest, because personally, before we got married, me and my husband discussed this. My husband is like your husband, like his family setting. They are very close. My mother-in-law, when I was in Nigeria, she calls, now it's even because of the time difference, she only calls me like every week. But when I was home, she calls at least once every 2 days, right? And most times, whenever she calls, me and my husband were always together, we always gisting and everything. So when she calls, she always say, let me talk to this person, let me talk to this person. So I remember the very first conflicts we had in our marriage, right? Me and my husband were keeping malice, okay? So we were not obviously together. So she called the first night and she asked me to give my husband the phone. So where's my husband? I said he's in the living room. It's okay, I should go and give him the phone. I gave him. The second time she called my husband, the second day, she didn't wait 2 days this time. She called my husband, she said, she just said everything. Where is your wife? Let me speak to her. I said, she's in the living room. He went to give me phone. So she started to notice that, okay, something is off here. And then my husband told me that she called him in the office and said, something is going on between you and your wife. And he was like, how? Like, in his mind, he was like, how? Like, did she tell you anything? Like, he thought I had told her that something was off. But she just observed that we were not the normal, like when she calls, we're always joking with each other, playing, laughing together and stuff like that. She noticed that it wasn't there and she just knew that something was off. And she gave her advice to my husband. My husband told her nothing was happening, that we are fine and everything. But he came home and then he told me. And that is just to show you that because of that proximity, we didn't have to go. She knew that something was off, right? And I've had my mom also sometimes, she'll just call me out of the blues and then we'll just talk, especially it's not even just about conflict alone. Sometimes there are things that will be going on in your marriage. It's not necessarily that you guys are fighting, but sometimes you just need somebody from the outside to help you. Maybe at that point, your husband cannot give you what you need in that moment, and you have to go to someone you trust, right, to give you that. However, the problem with conflict is that when you are in conflict, you are not thinking straight. You are believing that you are right. You want to stand by your right. You are angry. You are upset because you are seeing this person as who he is right now, as that person that offended you, not who you know him to be, not who you know that he truly is. Right? You are seeing him through the lens. And this happened when we had one big fight. And you see, because I have a public platform where I talk about marriage and relationship and everything, I find it very, very difficult to approach people, even family members, when I'm having issues in my marriage. First of all, I don't think that I should, because most times, most of the issues, we can resolve it if the two of us decide that we want to resolve it, first of all. But it's even more tougher because I know that these people follow my channel. Even my family members and his family members, they follow my channel. Imagine the way and sometimes I'm telling you, when we talk about conflicts, people think it's just arguments and keeping malice. Sometimes conflict gets dirty. We yell at each other. I'm not encouraging that, and it doesn't happen often. But this is something that sometimes you fight dirty. You say things you don't mean to each other. So imagine saying, and you see, when between the two of you, you know that everything this person is saying is just because of how the person is feeling. You understand that. But when it's somebody external, it's different. Because imagine the way me and my husband fight every time. When my neighbors, sometimes I'm sure when they hear us fight, they'll think that we don't love each other. They will think, boy, so like these people here, their marriage is about to crash. But we too, is we that fought, that is we that we make up. And we just understand that. But you see, an outsider does not see it that way. So I remember, and I think I shared it here before, that day, we had this crazy fight that, it was like very, very something to, honestly, I cannot remember what caused the fight. That's to tell you how nonsensical that fight was. But because I took offense that he didn't want to accept, it was just a matter of them. We tried to talk about it, but the two of us were so honored that I was right, it was right. And it became a very nonsense thing that before you know what is happening, when I was picking that call, the Holy Spirit told me, don't do it. Do not do it. I said, no, I'm going to call his mother and tell him that this is what your son. That's the way I carry my phone, no. And I came to Yoba will say, you bring yourself outside like a hate this child. I was saying things that I didn't mean, and because I wanted to make not to say I was at fault. I still don't believe I'm at fault, even though I don't remember what the situation was.
You oh God. Say no more. You guys can already tell who was at fault. Say no more. We know.
I don't care what you think. As long as I'm concerned. Anyway, we both had our fault in it, and we both know that it was. We knew, obviously, eventually when we spoke about it, it was just our stubbornness that made the fight become more than it's supposed to be. Yeah. Right? So, but however, because I wanted to make her know that I'm justified in my anger, there were certain things that me and my husband had discussed that is supposed to be kept between the two of us. Certain things we were going through in our marriage that we agreed that nobody else would know about it. But because I wanted to make myself look righteous, I shared things that I was not supposed to share. And then when the mom called him, and him too wanted to, when my mom told him that I said, him too now wanted to say. So him too now went to say things that he also was not supposed to say. I probably know what's happening. We open all our dirty laundry in the public here. And then it became...
It's not so public.
Well, that's the thing, obviously, because it's family, right? And it became okay.
But just because in the context of this conversation...
Yeah. Then it was his mom. Then his mom called my mom. Then my mom called his aunt, his cousin's wife that is in Abuja, who could come physically, and then it became a thing. My sister was aware. My mom was crying. I'm telling you, this small issue became a big thing where my mom for the first time in my life I hung up on my mom because I was so pissed. And then because the more somebody tells somebody the story, the more worse it gets, because you just anyways, it became that messy to the point where I was on a call in public and I was saying things that I should not be saying because something if I cannot remember what caused, I'm telling you, it could be something as ridiculous as something ridiculous. I know I cannot remember what caused it, but I know it was something so stupid. Now became a very huge mess. We started to say things we were not supposed to say to outsiders and all of that. And then, when our eyes now clear, everybody now knows. It now became I kept asking him, I know the Holy Spirit will not shame you, but it will tell you that I told you so. What was I thinking? And then imagine somebody who has been following my channel, maybe they always, when I was in Abuja, they always call us, hey, Victoria Fash, this and that. I always imagine that someone that knows me was in that car that day when I was saying all this thing about my husband that I don't mean. But because I was in a place of anger, I was saying things that wasn't really the way things are. I was saying things out of context, right? And it became messy. It became so messy that, I was offended at his family members because they didn't take my side. I was offended at him because he said what he wasn't supposed to say. He was offended at me, and then I was offended at my mom, and my mom was offended at my sister. It became a huge mess. Anyways, eventually, of course, thank God it was between families. We were able to resolve it. It became a thing of, somebody will call me and say, I hope that after we've resolved the fight, we have resolved, we are fine. Nothing is going on. Somebody will now call, I hope you have cooked for your husband today. I hope you have, it now became a thing of, Shebi is with that way. You cannot be angry because they were sitting in their house. It's you that carry your matter to go and tell them, right? So now they will call and they will be, trying to remind me at a point to tell my husband, please talk to this person. I have to talk to my own. That matter has died. Let it die. Don't bring it up again. We are over it and all of that. But there was that shame, because I know that this issue, we would have resolved it between ourselves if somebody just decided that, okay, have your way. Okay, you are right. You understand? We'll live to fight another day. So that is the issue with involving third party, because when it finishes between the two of you, it has not finished there, and God will bless you. Let something like that arise again. Maybe you had an issue, small issue like that. They will say, Shebi, that's how she was talking about her husband that day. Shebi, that's how she was doing this. Shebi, that's how she said. You understand that? That is why you have to be careful, especially if the third party is within family members. I know our family is, our bedrock and everything, but at the same time, you need to be careful, because you see, at the end of the day, if push comes to shove, I love my family because, my husband can never be wrong in their eyes. No matter what I say. My mom will tell you, go and apologize. I know you are my child. Go, my husband can never be wrong. And I like that, because that is the kind of person I portray him to be to my family members. That when I'm having issues, my mother will call him and start apologizing to him. She's your younger sister. This and that and everything. And I don't, sometimes, of course, I get upset because really that's not how it is. But the person I married to is not a senseless person. He's a sensible person. When stuff like that arises, we find ways to sort it out, right? So I can only remember that one situation, or those two. The first one I didn't invite, they came. The other one I invited, and it became a huge mess, right? Now, maybe if we had, and before we got married, they always say that you should have somebody that can talk to you. Your partner should have somebody that can talk to him. That if he's misbehaving and he's not listening, you can go and find that. I know my husband told me who his own was. For me, I didn't really have, to be honest. There is nobody that cannot talk to me, as far as I'm concerned. I just don't want you. I just don't. Maybe now, or maybe in the future I will have, but I just don't have that one person that will say, go and report me to if I'm doing anything. And my mom is there, my sister. And honestly, I would, apart from that day, I'm not a person that my husband is offending. I'll now go and meet somebody I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to share when I'm having issues in my marriage, because I know everybody has issues in their marriages, and we'll resolve it. It's not me to go and be sharing that this is what is going on. But my husband is not like that though. When I offend him and I'm in my element, you see, the problem between the two of us is when he's offended, he wants to talk about it. When I'm offended, I close up. And because I'm closing up, he doesn't know who to talk to. He thinks I'm closing up because I am upset at him. He will now go and meet my sister or my cousin because he knows we are close. And then he will try to talk to them, and I'll tell him, give me time. You understand that? So I realized that when we're having issues, and I will tell him I need time to process, so that he knows that it's not because I am upset that I'm not talking. I am trying to process. And then he will tell me too that I will give you time if you promise that when you are finished processing, you will come and talk. Because the other problem is that when I finish process, I will still not go. I will be waiting for him to come. But at that point, you understand. So anyways, I know I've spoken too much, but
there's some really important things that you mentioned that I just really wanted to highlight. And one of them is the fact that, you don't reach out or invite other people when you're out of anger. It's not in the state of anger that you will go and say you want to go and reach out to somebody, even if it is in conflict. It's not in that point where, because like we said, like realistically, there will be times that you will need to reach out to people. When it becomes overwhelming for you, it might not necessarily even be in conflict, like you even mentioned. Like it might not necessarily be conflict. It might be that you just genuinely need another person to help you carry that burden that your husband, that like you and your husband are probably maybe carrying that burden, and you need to relieve or you need to distress or something, that you speak to somebody else, and you trust that they can help. So, but even when you're speaking to somebody else in another situation that is aside from conflict, you still do not want to speak from a place of emotions, or either anger or too much
passion.
too much pain or hurt or too much passion, exactly, that you don't even you're not putting your words together, that people then begin to assume what is not there. People then begin to read between the lines. I remember, like, when I was much younger, not like much younger, when I was, before I got married, and it was a relationship between my stepmom and I. And every time we would have conflicts or things like that, disagreement, she would go and tell my dad, and my dad would be like trying to resolve it between both of us. And I'm like, one day I just told her, if we ever have issues, if you want me and you to be close in this house, do not go and report me to my dad. Like, what's that? Can't we have a relationship aside from going to my dad? And she was just trying to be cautious and trying to know, because I was in university at the time that I was just finishing secondary school at the time. She got married to my dad, and I was grown up. I could make decisions for myself. So when we have arguments or disputes, she would then go and tell my dad, and I remember just warning her. And later on, when I was going into marriage, and she told me that was one of the things that helped her in our relationship, that I told her not to go and bring in a third party into this relationship of ours, but we will deal with it. So she learned to like trash out issues. And I remember telling my husband like a joke one day that, I don't I remember my relationship with my stepmom, like, how we're trying to mend things. And I really told her that don't go and don't report me to anybody. If we cannot resolve between ourselves, then we cannot strengthen this relationship. And he then picked that up. I didn't really tell him just for us. I just told him like, geez. He then picked up that and learned that I'm not the kind, because I told him before with our own relationship that I don't like reaching out, like going to meet, like I used to do things on my own. Like I used to tell my husband that I cry, but you would never see me cry in front of anybody. You would never catch me crying in front of anybody. So I used to tell him those things, but he didn't believe it. So until I told him like that day that, like just like, I really don't like that kind of thing. Like when you are, because I used to, when he maybe calls his siblings and maybe they are discussing, and maybe by Jace, he just maybe shares a plan that we have. I used to be like, what is...
that thing used to vex me. I used to tell my husband, but you see, go ahead, sorry, I don't mean to cut you.
No, yeah, I get it, but I didn't used to get it, and every time I tried to explain, he would have been like, oh, sorry. It didn't really sink in until that moment when I shared it with him. So he then understood that it's not because I have issues with your family, or I just don't want you to be close to them. It's just because this is my own personality, and this is the way I've done things all my life, and it will take time for me to adjust into the way you do your things, and then we continue to have conversations around it. So anyways, I just wanted to highlight that there's no point sharing with bringing in a third party out of anger or in that state of emotions. Another thing you said that I really want to highlight as well is also the fact that, I think I've mentioned it as I was talking, but not necessarily the fact that it has to be conflict all the time when you need help. There was a case of a couple that I know. They were having financial difficulties. Now, one of the party, I don't want to say whether the husband's family or one of them were wealthy, but this guy is struggling. He just needed to borrow. He just needed a loan to finance something that he was doing. But the wife knew that she could access this loan like without stress from her own family. And the guy did not need to maybe go to the bank to get this loan and then be paying interest. She knew that she could get it from them. But she kept asking him, but him, where he's coming from, the father handled all this thing. They never had to. So it was really a big deal for her to, eventually she went and asked. And it became a big deal with them, because it became a big deal in that relationship, and they had to like manage it and eventually just go through that phase. But then I'm just saying that sometimes genuinely, and eventually in the long run, the guy was grateful that he didn't have to go to the bank. He was able to. It was grateful, but in the moment that was happening, he didn't like it. But eventually, it paid off, and they were able to smooth it paid off. In the long run, he was happy about it. He was glad that she did it actually. But in that moment, so there will genuinely be times that you would need to invite a third party. You will need counseling from maybe a pastor. There are times that, maybe you're finding it difficult to get something, maybe a job, or maybe a child. In some cases, I remember my sister had that issue in her marriage early on. She was, they were in between, trying to conceive, and it was a big deal. And then they were just reaching for help. And sometimes it could even be a child, that your child is having and experiencing something that you need to seek help. Maybe your parents, that one of your mom or your in-laws have gone through that phase, and you genuinely need to ask them, how are you people doing this? How have you done it? So there will be cases that you genuinely need to ask for help. But how do you now navigate when you now genuinely need to do it? Because sometimes, yes, there is a need to do it. Yes, we are in an argument and he wouldn't listen to me. We are not able to resolve it on our own. One of us is not listening. This issue, we have tried to cover it. We have tried to mend it. But one party is just not. Like, how do you then deal with it? Because I think it's not about to do it or not to do it. Don't or do. I think it's more about managing it when the need arises. Obviously, it's not every thing that you would go and share, or every time you ask for help. But in those critical moments when you genuinely need to ask for those help, when you genuinely need to invite somebody, how do you then go about it? I think that's something that I just thought, like, we can share.
I think that, first of all, if it's about conflicts, I think you've mentioned it's like, don't say it out of a place of anger. I think also the person you're sharing with is very important. You don't want to share with someone that your partner has an issue with, but is most likely to take your side. So you go and share with that sibling that does not like your wife or does not like your husband, because you know that they will most likely take your side. Secondly, I think that this is something that you need to probably even discuss before you get married. Is it okay if I'm to talk to somebody, who do I talk to and all of that, right? Is it okay? Can we talk to a third party? Have the, when does it get to at what point do I have permission to bring in a third party? Have that conversation, right? I also think that, it's always good for you to report your partner to somebody from their side, their friend, their trusted friend that they've given you permission to share issues with, right? Or their trusted family members that can call the person to order. The worst thing you want to do is to report your partner to your own family. See, don't ever. See, because your family, whether you like it or not, even I say my family, my husband can be no wrong. First of all, I'm still my mother's child, right? Exactly. Your husband will first of all be their priority, even though the two have become one. But if push comes to shove, if they get to choose side, they will always choose their own son or their own daughter. So don't go and be reporting your partner to your own family member that this is my husband. Hey, that is wrong, right? You see that thing you said about, borrowing money or not. I've had that issue before. I actually read a story like that on Instagram. This one was like the guy did not it became an issue of divorce because she sought for help, right? I also married a man that has a lot of ego, and even me too. Because if we're being honest, me too. There are certain things that I share with my husband. I tell you, I don't want anybody in your family to be away, and it becomes a thing of, but your family are away. But you spoke to your sister about it. Why should I not talk to my brother about it? And I'm like, listen, this is about me. My husband, and this is still something that we have to sit down and talk about. See, when it regards you, I don't have permission to go and share with my family member if you have not giving me permission. Now the problem is, when it comes to marriage, what affects you affects me. So sometimes it's a gray area. So for instance, if you lost your job, right, and we are out of funds, and I want to ask from my siblings, and they're asking me what's going on, most times I'll most likely not tell them that it's because of job. I'll tell them maybe something else. But if for any reason I had to tell them that our finances is limited because you lost your job, at that point in time you will feel offended because you are the one that lost your job. But also remember that there's a way that affects me too. So you have to first of all figure it out. What are the things, and the things you don't want to share, you have to, don't call my family member, don't tell anybody about this, right? But the things that they've told you they absolutely do not want any other person to hear about, don't say it, because that's what causes conflict, right? But you see, where we have plans, we have this and that, and also you need to be understanding, because I know that I can personally, when I'm planning things, I don't like to share it with people. When it has come to fruition and everything, I would tell them, if you like, be offended, that's your life problem. There's nothing I needed from me. If I needed something from you, I would have told you. You understand that? And that's the same way. I don't expect you to tell me your situation, right? Until whenever you're ready to tell me. But you see, my husband, and it's the same with my siblings, right? We are close. And we share things we want to share when we are ready to share. But you see, my husband is the firstborn of his family, right? And sometimes he feels like it's the way he relates with them that will be a precedent for how they relate with him. So this is just like generally speaking. It doesn't happen all the time. Yeah. So sometimes before we are talking about something, I've not told him not to share. We're talking about something, and before I know what is happening, we say, I was talking to this person about it. I'm like, when did you... But he'll be like, but it is your sister daughter where did you tell and then it becomes a thing of this thing. At the end of the day, you have to know what works. So because I know that he has the tendency to do that, the things I do not want him to share with anybody, I tell him expressly, I don't want anyone to know about this until I am ready. Also, if it's an issue with your partner, be very wary of sharing it with your family members. Maybe your partner, God forbid, cannot conceive and stuff like that, or maybe there's something, a crisis. You now go and share with your family member, this was going on. Even if she tells her family members, you don't have a right to tell yours, because even though we are saying that the two have become one, my dear, we both know.
You have been in this family for years. They've been your people for years. Now I'm just adjusting to this new one now.
Allow me to adjust. You understand that? So I think I wrote something down to that. And when you go to tell his family members, please also own up to your own part in it. Don't be only sharing what he did, or she did. Share what role you believe you also played in it. Exactly. Share what you've tried to use to reconcile it and it hasn't worked out. And also, talking about that, make sure that you've before you bring somebody outside, if it's a conflict situation, make sure that you have exhausted every possible option between the two of you to resolve it. And if it doesn't work out, you know that, okay, at this point in time, we need an outsider to interfere. But if it's that way, I don't want to say sorry. I want somebody to tell him to tell me sorry. That's why you now go and, you will end up getting burnt, really, right? Okay. I also said you need, I've already spoken about it, have the conversation before marriage. Don't overshare. That's the last thing. Don't overshare. Be mindful, because sometimes when you're talking out of anger and out of passion, you will say things you're not supposed to say. And then it's now become of, but you didn't tell me this was going on. You start to open up things that people outsiders, literally, even your family members, don't have any business knowing, right? So I think that don't overshare. Be mindful. Keep it at what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
If the situation is where he didn't give you money, don't go and be saying that's the way last year. That was how he always do. That is the keep it in that issue that is what you should discuss. Don't go and be telling the person that that's your husband's character. That's how he always does. And that is what he always if that is how he always, we used to be in that marriage. So be mindful. Don't create a monster of your partner in the eyes of the public, because let
us drop. In fact, we have closed for the day.
I love it because I've seen it happen a lot, and I learned this from my mom. My mom went through a lot in a marriage. If she doesn't tell you, or if you are not, even we as kids, it took us years for us to really understand everything that was going on. because she would never open up to anybody. I'm sure she had a circle of friends, like 2 of them, that, obviously, because you cannot you need to have that person in your corner that you can, especially if it's like a severe situation, that you can share stories together, like your friend and close friends and everything, that that is not, the person will not go and tell somebody and everything. She had her outlet, but when she would go to family, she would go to my mom, never. There were things that, they still blame my mom for today that we know that it was not her fault. You understand that? But she will tell you that she doesn't need their validation. She's not in the marriage. When it finishes between the 2 of them, it will finish in the outsider. So when you create an image of a monster of your partner, and they have that image, they will now see the 2 of you tomorrow doing TikTok videos or holding us together and doing love. They will say that in their mind, they'll say they are deceiving themselves, they are unhappy, and before they start to spread rumor about your family.
Oh God.
Exactly. So please be careful. I've seen people who went to talk to their friends about what their husband is doing. The friend came on Instagram. I still saw like 2 in this past week. My friend's husband is cheating on her. She's checking it. Even though they didn't put the name. Imagine if the friend reads it. She knows that she's the one the person is talking about now.
Right.
So please.
Oh God.
That is my advice.
God. I said at this point like this, let's just end the podcast. Like let's just finish talk for today. Like those are really, really powerful. And it's interesting. Do you know what? The interesting thing is that I was waiting for your very first point to be pray about it. I'm shocked. I'm shocked. Let me just put it out there. That I am shocked.
That one is a give,
I am shocked that because normally, if you're not shocked in the comments, just let me know. Because it's not as solid. I just like most times when I'm thinking of things like when we have a conversation, I don't even need to put the first because I know Victoria will not. No. She will put it first. Don't worry about it. So I'm shocked. No, you should be proud of yourself. Jesus is proud of you.
Prayer is important, but don't give God responsibilities. There are some things that God will not do for you. That you need to do by. Sure, there are some things that you go and pray about. God will tell you, go and do. This is not a matter of prayer. It's your character. Go and change it. And that's the thing with God. When you go to God, I've learnt it. I mean, I've gone to God. I have one in my journal here. I was telling God, my husband is this, my husband is that. When you go and report your husband to God, God will not, it's you that God will talk to. It's you. It's God will say, go and you. That thing you did, what you are saying, have you prayed over it? Have you done this? Have you done that? You know, I'll be saying, what's the point?
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. But just so that it will not be like, I didn't say what I usually say first. So pray about it, I remember like you were talking in the earlier when you were saying you were about to make that call, but the Holy Spirit prompted you not to do it. But you did. So, anyways,
listen to the Holy Spirit to save you a lot of embarrassment.
It will even guide you to know the person to talk to and at when. Because some people, you'll be hearing cases of, why didn't you tell us earlier? Like, why didn't you people tell us sooner? Before things got to this point, why didn't you say? All those cases, all those, excesses, it is only God that can help us to know exactly when and how to do it. So really pray about it. And one thing I just want to add in addition to that is just to, respect your partner's or your husband's or your wife's decision about bringing in a third party, who they've decided, when they've decided, how they've decided. Let's try to respect it. Do not take it for granted, because there's been times when I remember there's a particular issue of somebody that I know where the wife she has said it to the husband, do not ever take our children to my dad's place, not because of anything, just do not take him to the place. But the lady was actually abused by the father, abused the mom that she saw, like beating, and she could never get over it. So the father didn't do it to her personally, but to her mom. And as a child, she was so scared, she was really terrified that she doesn't want her child to be there. But there was one day the husband had an emergency, blah blah blah. He had to keep the child with the dad, and the girl came back home and he said something that, but it's your dad's house. And that made her really for a while they had to mend that trust, because in her mind, I trusted you not to do this because I told you not to do it. Although she never shared the why, because it was still a pain that she,
which is also a problem.
Yeah, but sometimes like people have not gone through that phase, because I remember there were some things that I had not fully processed before I got married, that I processed in marriage, that I never gave him the why. I just told him this is it, until I was ready to talk about the why, and then fully understood it. But all those periods before I said the why, there were days he respected the decision, there were days he did not. But days before he respected the decision, he would just say it like casually, but it's just this thing, like, it's just this simple. And I'm like, it's not that simple for me. And it might not be that simple for you in some cases. So let's just try to respect our partner's decision, however it is.
Yeah.
Take your time to, share it. There's this movie on Netflix that I saw where I can't even remember the story, but it's a Nigerian storyline where the man used to, abuse his secretaries, and this particular lady, she's not married to a man of God. She wanted to go, and she's not pregnant for the husband. She wanted to really go and testify against this man because she knew she had evidence. But the husband kept saying, no, I'm a man of God, I don't want people. The husband kept saying no, and she kept waiting, and she kept praying, and she kept, even though the case was going to the point that man was going to win, but she kept praying. And one day, that man, in his own message to the church, he heard in his spirit that he should allow the woman to go. And it was like the last day of the court's hearing, like this, that she went and gave that testimony, and the man was indicted. So let's not take for granted that she could have as well said, I'm going to save lives, and she will go. She could have as well said that. But let's try as much as possible. That's why it's important to add it with prayer as well. Let's try as much as possible to just respect your partner's decision when you're inviting a third party, in addition to every other thing, communicate about that one. Like Sarah said, as you have even talked, you have pieces it. There's no, say no more about it. Say no more. Yes, I think that is from me on this conversation. Let us know what you guys think in the comments about this topic. I think we've really talked a lot about this, but share your thoughts with us in the comments. What do you think? How do you invite third parties? Do you think it's realistic to not invite third parties? Just let us know your opinion on this conversation. We'd love to hear from you. And if there's any question, any tale, anything you want us to share on the channel, let us know as well. You can reach out to us on Instagram via email. You can reach out to us on our personal Instagram account. As always, we have our own personal channels as well on YouTube. You can follow us there. The podcast is also available on all your podcast platforms. You can listen to us there if you prefer to listen. We'll put the links in the description box. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode, for watching today's video. We appreciate you as always. And as always, yes. As always, we remain your favorite host, Yemi and
Victoria.
Yay! All right. See you guys in the next one.
All right, see you guys. Bye.